Welcome to Life Esteem, a program committed to delivering information that's important to you and your community.
Hello and welcome to Life Esteem again. Always great to have you as a viewer. And today we're going to talk about a very important subject for the entire community. And in order to do that, we have with us Amanda Arbour of the YWCA of Greater Harrisburg and Chief Jason Umberger, who is with the Swadara Township Police. So glad to have you both on. We're also going to be joined a little bit later with Chief Carter, Thomas Carter, who is the Chief of Police for the Harrisburg City. Glad to have you both on. Very important project you've been working on. Tell us all about it.
Sure. So the YWCA is very proud to launch our What to Do When Stopped by the Police educational outreach campaign in partnership with our law enforcement partners. We've been working on this for about a year as part of the Criminal Justice and Community Relations Task Force that the YWCA convenes of law enforcement and community partners working together to build stronger police-community relations. And so it's really an effort to help communicate the message that law enforcement wants to get out, as well as the community, about how to have safe interactions with the police and how, as the tagline says, what you need to know so that we can all get home safe.
Fantastic. And this is, what's the name of the project? What are we calling it?
It's the What to Do When Stopped by Police.
What to Do When Stopped by Police. That's the name of it. And I think you have a flyer or something up that we can show everybody what it looks like. There it goes.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. And I understand, Amanda, you were the person who designed all of this. Is that right?
Yes.
Nice and colorful. Real good. But this is quite a collaboration. We're so glad to have all the three of you to come on and talk about it because there's so much happening in our society today, and there's so much anger back and forth. But these kind of efforts helps everybody, right? Chief, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, it's been a great collaboration with the Y. Getting together with community stakeholders and meeting regularly and working together to educate the public. And then, as law enforcement, we also get an education as well when we are sitting with community stakeholders, and we get to hear, the unvarnished feedback from people in the community. So that's been a very positive thing from my standpoint and from law enforcement standpoint.
But we have been involved with you, and I guess for about 2 or 3 years now, Amanda, has it been, that we formed the Criminal Justice Community Relations Task Force? And what was that initially about? Remember when that first got started, we did what?
Sure. So it really came out of the Let's Talk, a conversation about race that both Chief Umberger and Chief Martin from Susquehanna Township, as well as David Botero from Harrisburg City, participated in. And that was kind of our inaugural conversation about race, a 6-week series that community leaders went through together. And so it was out of those relationships that were really formed that we had a chance to continue conversations about how we can build stronger police-community relations.
Right, absolutely.
And then you did the training?
Yes. So then it led into our To Protect and Serve in the 21st Century, Building Bridges with Diverse Communities training, which we held last year, which was a series of 3 2-day trainings that really focused on reducing racial profiling, increasing cultural competency, and really equipping officers to understand and better work with the diverse communities that we serve.
Yeah, this is great. I know we're going to get to the brochure here in a minute, but also down in Penn State, Harrisburg recently, there was something that took place at training. What was that all about, Chief Umberger?
That was Chief Carter and Dave Botero, Harrisburg Bureau of Police, took the leadership on that. That was the Peel Institute of Applied Policing brought a training to us, 21st Century Policing, and it was community and law enforcement attended that training. And that was about the President's 21st Century Task Force on Policing and discussing some of the highlights that came out of that committee work that was done by the President's Council, which we all know was led by Chief Ramsey, former police commissioner of the Philadelphia Police. He led that committee, which was made up of a group of law enforcement practitioners, social scientists, academia, and just folks from all over the country. Worked very hard for a 90-day period on that project.
Fantastic, good stuff, good stuff. So why don't we get to the brochure, because this is really sage information, and I know you guys have worked on this hard. I've seen all the emails flying back and forth, and I'm like, wow, I mean, seriously, because, if anyone had a thought, well, maybe this isn't going to fly so much, or maybe we need to include this, it was considered, and there was a lot of great collaboration on that. So I'm just going to kind of turn this so people can kind of see it. I know you can't read it all that close, but Chief Umberger, I see you have some of that in front of you. If you want to talk about a few of the points, and then Amanda could, both of you could jump in there.
Sure. Basically the head topics, the main topics that the brochure talks about is driving, what to do if you're stopped by a police officer, how you can expect to be treated by a police officer, and then what are the best practices for a motorist to engage in so that we can all go home safely.
Yeah.
We go over the topic of walking, how to interact with a police officer if you interact with them on the street. We go over searches in general, searches of vehicles, searches of and what constitutes probable cause and reasonable suspicion, without getting into all the minute details, but a good overview of that so people can have a good understanding. We talk about, which is another hot thing that goes on today across our country, filming and recording. We give a little bit of advice there. What to do if you're a bystander.
Okay.
And then if you're ultimately arrested, how to conduct yourself if you find yourself in custody of the police.
Yeah, sure. Good stuff.
And one thing, and Nate alluded to this as well, is that this took a lot of the task force time to really make sure what would be initially produced would in fact be received, okay, by the community, law enforcement, and everyone had a stake in it. But the other thing you did too was you had it duplicated. How many languages did you have this available?
It's available in 5 different languages, so we felt like it was important because we have so many multilingual speakers in our community, in a growingly diverse population, that it wasn't going to be available just in English. It's also available in Spanish, Vietnamese, Chinese, and French, which were, according to the statistical analysis, the top spoken languages in our area. And we hope that additional printings will be able to have more languages, but those are the 5 that are currently available.
That's great. And just for the sake of the audience now, the makeup of the committee itself to put this together, very diverse, a lot of diversity?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Yeah, as Chief Umberger alluded to, it was really a great mix of law enforcement and community partners. So on the law enforcement end, we have Chief Umberger, we have David Botero representing Chief Carter, Harrisburg City, Chief Martin, Susquehanna Township, PA State Police, PA Inspector General, U.S. Attorney's Office, PA Attorney General's Office. That was the law enforcement side, and then on the community side, we have great representation from the Community Responders Network, as well as the Governor's Advisory Commission on Asian Pacific American Affairs and the Women of Color Network. So we've had a lot of robust discussions, and this is really the product of about a year's work talking through, what we wanted to include, how to phrase it, how to really kind of walk that fine balance between making sure it was something that the community and law enforcement could really own together. And so, we're really excited to finally be able to present it to the community.
Good stuff.
Well, I know also some months back too, you had another individual come in and actually do a presentation at Harrisburg University.
Yes.
They had written a book, I think it was called
The Stop.
The Stop.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Dwayne Bryant.
What's his name?
Yeah. Dwayne Bryant.
Dwayne Bryant.
Dwayne Bryant. And I know both of you were at that. You were too, right?
Yes.
You were there as well. And you thought, Chief Umberger, that he did a pretty nice job in his presentation.
I did.
Okay.
He did. Very passionate about his work. That's what came through to me.
To you.
He was very passionate about what he's doing. So I always enjoy people with passion.
Absolutely. So, but what are as we move forward, we have the brochure, we want to get that out, but also isn't there a curriculum as well that we're working on?
Yeah, so our goal is these materials are available for anyone in the community, but our goal is to really get them in the hands of youth, because we know that youth, particularly youth of color, often have the most negative interactions with law enforcement, and that's really something that we seek to help change, to build stronger relationships, more trust between these two groups. And so we know that youth are on social media as well as a lot of us adults, and so this image is going to be kind of our social media presence, the image that you see on the screen. So we'll be sharing that. You can visit our Facebook page at YWCA Harrisburg, and I know that'll be on other Facebook pages as well. So that will be one way we're seeking to get the word out, as well as the brochure itself. We also have a small wallet card that has kind of the most pertinent information and also a link to our website. And all of these materials are going to be on the YWCA's website at www.ywcahbg.org, available for free download. And you can also submit a request there for printed copies of the brochure and the card, as long as our supplies last.
Fantastic. Now, Chief Umberger, I know that you and Chief Carter and Chief Martin out in Susquehanna Township. He's no longer the chief, but I still call him chief, right? You guys have been extremely visible, very supportive of this kind of effort and well known in the community, well respected. Do you find other law enforcement, heads throughout the area, having the same passion and foresight that you have? And do you think it's filtering down to the rank and file in the proper kind of way? You think everybody's getting it? So
yeah, I think that yes, as we have been forcefully advancing these ideas, that yes, other chiefs, when we meet at the Dauphin County Chiefs of Police, are starting to recognize the importance of the community and getting community input and educating the community. I think that's definitely been something that they're more receptive to now.
Okay, very good, very good. Yeah. And I know and you think the community is responding to that too? Are they beginning to get it that it's a team effort here?
Yes, I think so. I think as we have been transparent and tried to answer those tough questions from the community, and the community rightly can ask tough questions of us. We exist to serve them. But as we have developed those relationships, I think the community is now starting, I hope, to get a better understanding of some of the difficulties in policing and some of the perceptions that folks have may not be as fair to us as they would be. And as we educate, I hope that there's more of a balance then. And then also from the other side, police are starting to understand the perceptions and the realities of folks in our community better.
Very good.
And you have, in Ventura Township, you have your own task force, do you not?
Yes.
Yeah, the citizens?
I have a Citizens Advisory Council, yes, and we've been meeting since March of 2015, and we're very proud of that. We just recently rolled out our first event, which was called The Law in Your Community at Living Water Church, and that was earlier this month. And that's a program that was designed by the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives and the Department of Justice. And we were able to provide that training to the community and law enforcement out at Living Water Church. So that was, we hope to continue that in the Harrisburg area, because Amanda attended that as well, and I think that was a positive event.
And then you have a junior police academy.
We have a Citizens Police Academy that our emphasis is on young folks now. We focused on 16 to 18-year-olds last year, and we're going to continue to do that. Get into the high schools and the criminal justice clubs, and just really anybody. You don't have to have a desire to be a law enforcement officer, but boy, it's a good training ground too if we can win some young people's hearts and minds over to our profession. But that's very positive too, and we will be, of course, we incorporate this type of curriculum into the Citizens Police Academy. We'll be incorporating this type of curriculum into our middle school team teaching, educating, and mentoring program, and into our high schools as our school resource officer goes out and teaches in the classroom. So we'll be working with our young people on all of these things: what to do if you're stopped by a police officer in a car, on foot, what are your rights, those types of things. Education, education, education.
I look at the brochure and a lot of things jump out at me, and the one in particular, I want you just to speak on this for a minute. Both of you, since you were on the committee, and that is the stay calm factor. And one of the things I know is that when a police officer is talking to a person, oftentimes they'll raise their voice, they'll give them a command, whatever, and people react to that. And a lot of times it's out of fear. But talk about just how important is that, to stay calm, because you put this on there for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, it's very important from both sides. Certainly, when there's an official stop, when a police officer is conducting official business, it's important that the citizens stay calm. And it's important that the officer stay calm too. And that's just going to, if both parties stay calm and stay reasonable, that's going to open the doors for more effective communication.
Right.
And that's what we really are after, because most problems we've found are communication issues. And we can see that all across organizations, and just our interpersonal conflicts that we have with folks. There usually gets down to lack of communication, or we could have communicated something better.
Sure, okay.
One of the other things I want to bring out.
We're going to have to bring up Chief Carter. We're going to see if we can switch out Chief Umberger. Thank you so much, sir, for doing a great job as always. Chief Carter from the Harrisburg City, the Chief of the Harrisburg City Police is coming up. That was, of course, Chief Umberger, and he just did he was from Swadire Township, and so we're so glad to have Chief Carter. Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. So we're talking about this fantastic brochure. Pat, I know you had a point you wanted to make.
Yeah, I wanted Amanda to talk about, because anytime you bring something, out and you get large distribution, okay, you want to make sure that you have disclaimers in some regards. So I thought it'd be nice to share your disclaimer that you put on here.
Absolutely. So we just included this, that the content in this brochure is not intended to be legal advice. Although we had attorneys as part of the process, we're not attempting to provide legal guidance. Rather, it's just a guide on generally what to do in a police encounter.
Fantastic. Good enough. Welcome, Chief Carter.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. I know you've been busy. But you have a lot of respect in the city. Everybody talks about the work that you're doing, the job that you're doing. When you look at this brochure and this project, and I see things jumping out, talk about this don't run aspect and why that's so important for citizens to understand what that means to a police officer when they start running.
Usually when a police officer stops you, they have probable cause to stop you. For the most part, they're just trying to get your information, like your name and, what you're doing in a certain neighborhood. As a young man of color, I can only talk about young men of color because I experienced this here don't run situation, back when I was growing up, when the police would stop you, right away, if you flee, that gives the officer the mindset, well, you must have been involved in some sort of criminal activity.
Right.
So, therefore, the cop may pursue you, and when you're apprehended or caught, it may not be a pleasant situation. For the most part, police officers are friendly. They like to engage people. They want to ask questions. It could have been something as simple as that, I like the outfit that you have on, or it could have been a question of, I got a telephone call, a complaint, about your walking around this neighborhood. The neighbors do not know you, can you explain to me, what you're doing here? Something as easy as that only takes a conversation from both parties.
Yeah, okay. And sometimes people overreact, they get excited, and then that's a red flag as well, too.
Yes.
So when you look at this brochure, what do you think are some of the most important aspects of it that we need to say to the citizens, and even I guess law enforcement too is using this as a way of training themselves too, I would imagine.
When you're approached by a police officer, let's do a vehicle stop. When you're stopped in a vehicle by a police officer, first of all, the police officer has probable cause to stop you, to pull you over because you either ran a stop sign, red light, or you committed some violation of the vehicle code. Okay, so when the police officer approaches your vehicle, you as a person should stay calm. The police officer should stay calm too. A lot of times, people are just leery of police officers, because of the current climate in this country. For instance, what's going on right now, what happened last night, I got a lot of phone calls about that. But, when a police officer stops you, just stay calm, show your hands, don't be fidgety, it's your right to ask the officer, why are you stopping me, but do it in a calm manner. The officer should respond to you in a calm manner. He's going to ask you to, exhibit your driver's license, insurance card, registration card, just give him the information that he's asking for. If it's a situation where you have it in your glove compartment, let the officer know. I got to take my hands off the steering wheel. I got to reach over here or in my wallet to give you the information that you need. Usually when something escalates, it's because voices escalate. And that's the beginning of a bad thing. But always just stay calm. Try to use the language as yes, officer, no, officer, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And things will turn out good for you. Even if the officer decides to give you a citation and you don't agree with the citation, you have the right to sign it or not to sign it. Okay. But just accept what he's giving you, because you can't argue and win anything right there. Your argument can be heard later on. If you don't like the way that the officer treated you, you have the right to contact the agency, to talk to his supervisor, and keep moving up the chain.
Good stuff, good stuff. So Amanda, you know, with the CRN and, you know, when you're sitting down thinking about the various issues that have happened, and of course you work a very good, close working relationship with Chief Umberger, you know, Chief Martin, we have to mention him as well, has been a part of the mix. Am I missing anybody else that's been part of this in terms of the chiefs and different people? But that's the core, right? So when you're looking at this and you're trying to play, you know, that balancing act, which the organization has to do, and you're concerned about it, how do you best handle this? What do you do when you go out into the, you know, the streets and talk to the average citizen, or when you go to these community forums and stuff like that? Are you more just a listening ear? How does CRN work in terms of, you know, just the kind of work you do? And let people know what CRN stands for.
Sure. So the CRN is the Community Responders Network, which is a grassroots coalition of concerned citizens focused on confronting and preventing bias in our community. And so they sort of fall under the umbrella of the YWCA and meet at our building. And they do a lot of work around both responding when something happens in the community, be it a hate crime, hate group presence, or just a bias incident, but then also do educational programming around how do we prevent these things from happening. So they've certainly been an integral part of the Criminal Justice and Community Relations Task Force. And I think to your question of kind of how do we walk that line, I think for me, kind of convening and leading this task force, I really seek to create a space where all voices can be heard. You know, that's why it was so important to bring together leaders from both law enforcement and the community so that we could be at the table together, having these difficult conversations together, but learning from one another, as Chief Umberger alluded to. You know, through this process, I have learned so much about police officers' perspective that I never knew, and you know, as a civilian, I will never fully understand. But you know, there's been that additional education on our end, and vice versa. And so I think you know, having spaces where we can come together and talk honestly, which is really at the core of the Let's Talk program as well that the YWCA runs. That's, I think, where we as an organization seek to place ourselves, to be a convening point where people can come together, have honest conversations about these issues, and then work towards solutions together, which I think, you know, this is the result of one of those.
Well, you know, talking about the Community Responders Network, Chief Carter, I want to talk about, you have, the wonderful article came out about your whole concept of community policing and how to really inform, you know, that coming back into our communities and have actually officers on the streets and engaging in relationships. Talk more about what you're doing here in the city of Harrisburg on that.
Well, what we're trying to do is get more police officers out there. You know, we're trying to hire more officers to be on foot, to be on motorcycles, to be on bikes, to engage the public, bring the community concept back, to let the people know, you know, that, you know, we are there as guardians for you to protect you. You know, there are circumstances, yes, that we have to arrest you, but it doesn't have to be an unpleasant situation, you know, that all encounters don't have to be physical, violent, dangerous, or anything like that, you know. I love Harrisburg. I bleed Harrisburg. I love the Harrisburg people here, you know. I think that we have, well, I know we have great people here, and I know that they want that back. Community policing is a concept where the community basically polices themselves. You know, we are there, as I said, as guardians, you know, but for the most part, when something is about to take place or when something is taking place, you know, then the community will come together and handle it unless it leads to criminal charges. But you know, we're building a precinct in the Allison Hill section in District 5. I want to get our, I want City Hall, I want the police in the neighborhoods, the communities. I want to build a precinct in the Uptown area. I would like to build one in the either the Cameron Street homes or the Hall Manor area. But you know, 2 for sure, possibly 3 if it's possible, because police officers should be visible, they should be out there, and people should have access to police officers. Our situation is that we're housed downtown in a business district. Is not user-friendly for the people. Everybody talks about the parking situation down there. You know, I want you to be able to walk into our precinct and engage a police officer. I want your kids to feel that they can go outside and be safe and play in their neighborhood, or come to City Hall, come to the precinct as a tour, get a tour, build up that interest in public safety.
Good, good,
Like
good.
that.
Now tell us the role of the police dude, and that would be David Botero, of course. He has a very unique role. Tell us a little bit about the work he does.
David is awesome. David, he's my extended arm, sort of. He's out engaging people in the community. He's going to all other crime watch meetings. He's my ears out there. He's listening, bringing back to me, what the people are saying, what they would like to see, what type of changes, what concerns that they have. Right now, we're planning. I think tomorrow's gonna be like 95 outside, really, really hot, and I love it. So we're gonna go out with our snow cone truck. I think that we're going to be uptown. We're going to be offering like free snow cones throughout the city, just doing things like that. David, he's out there. I take my hat off to my counterpart, Jason Umberger. He's a great police chief. His academy that he has, we're going to start one back here in the city, because there's a lot of interest, and so, with Rob Martin and with Jason and myself, we just want to, just give the people what they need. We want to serve. We are public servants, and we want to be looked at as public servants. We're here, to protect and serve the public. And that's a concept that we want to bring back. The concept in the past, like in the 60s, in the 70s, and the 80s, and even in the 90s, was that their warrior mentality. You have to be both. You have to be a guardian first and a warrior second, and so that's what we're trying to do. But Dave's out there talking to the people, finding out what they want, what they would like to see, and we try to make that happen.
I know we're going to run out of time, but again, this brochure is wonderful, and I know we had a graphic up. You can see that graphic one more time. If it's still up there, there it goes.
What to do when stopped by the police.
Yeah, and we have to make sure that we get these distributed everywhere so that people can really take advantage of them. So I'm hoping that the churches will step up, the schools, places of businesses and everything else. Yeah, So, and then another thing I want to mention real quick. I know we're down to about a minute. We need to get more diversity in the forces, but we need people to step up to do that. So I know you guys have an aggressive program in place to try to get more people enticed to come into the profession. We talk about, we're concerned, and let's step up to the plate and, get some people in there that's willing to do the job, right?
Yes, and I would like to say, that, we're out there recruiting heavily. All the police chiefs are, we want to get people of color, but I want to reach out to the families. I want to say to the mothers, to the moms, you can change things. You can change the way, that your child thinks. You can change the way that your child looks at things, Please encourage them to get into the public safety field, EMS worker, firefighter, police officer. These are great fields. They are honest fields. There are always be work and room to grow in these fields. We have to, stop the misconception, that police officers are bad and that's not the field to get into.
Well, we'll have to wrap it up here on that, but that's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for watching this program. I hope you take everything to heart. Whatever you do, get out there and get involved. And remember, there's work going on. See you next time on Life Esteem. Goodbye. Great job.